Last year, I ranked every completed Pokemon fan game I had played, and today I'll be adding 16 more I've played since. If any of my places on screen pique your interest, I highly suggest watching that original video linked in the description below. The only changes I've made to the current list is adding an S+ tier to mark my absolute favorites. But let's start with Consonancia, which basically takes the setting and story of the mobile game Pokemon Masters, leaving behind its undesirable mechanics, transforming it into a normal Pokemon game. So you've got a big region, generation 1 through 9 Pokemon, and every character from the mainline games. What's there even not to like? Well, not much. There isn't a whole lot this game does wrong, though there is a bit I felt it lacked. The writing is extremely basic, at some points being difficult for me to read because of how bland it was. I think this is just due to the creator replicating the dialogue straight from the mobile game, yet I can't help but criticize the decision to not make it a bit more bearable. Other than that, I think the game is good and most people watching will probably have a good time with it. For me personally though, I had a difficult time staying engaged due to the lack of any unique mechanics or storytelling compared to many of my more preferred fan games. A game that did keep me quite interested is Pokemon Concealed. Like I alluded to a moment ago, I have a pretty high standard for storytelling in Pokemon fan games, a standard this one was surprisingly able to match. It's told from the perspective of a young girl named O'Neil, who after years of being tormented by her family and peers, decides to run away from the town she's been told her whole life is the only safe place to live. It's a story with a lot of dark and depressing elements that refrains from ever hitting that sort of edginess most people are put off by. Outside of the writing, you can mostly expect average levels of gameplay. There aren't any gyms, yet you also won't find any unique gimmicks or noticeable difficulty increases. Although I didn't find myself getting bored at any point in between story beats, so I'll throw it in the low A tier. Definitely one of the more unique narratives in Pokemon fan projects, though not a game I recommend if story isn't something you care very much for. Before I continue with the tier list, I'd like to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Dokimonster's Quest. That is not only receiving new DLC content, but will also be going on a 75% off sale. If you're not aware of what this game entails, it's a Game Boy Color inspired adventure with over 140 unique monsters for you to capture. They can also, to maybe your surprise, be modified with ease, and the battles you engage with can be sped up by simply holding down the spacebar. The game has a lot of quality of life, and even some more unique features like the ability to steal your opponent's monsters in certain situations. Within the next few days, the game will also receive a paid DLC update, including new story content, map locations, overworld boss encounters, and even vehicles to traverse around the map. This will be launching while the game is on sale for less than $5 USD, a sale that'll begin on the 14th, just 2 days after this video goes live. So if you haven't already, I highly suggest checking out Dokimonsters and even giving the game a go once the sale begins. It's a simple yet charming retro experience that's received tons of updates and polish since its original release. Getting back into the list with Chaos in Vesita. The main thing that stands out to me about this game is the region design. Every map is constructed well, with visuals that stay consistent throughout your entire adventure through it. If the journey is your favorite aspect of a game, I automatically suggest this one, especially considering there is a healthy amount of QOL to help training with your Pokemon. Though it may disappoint you that only those from up to Generation 6 are available to capture. That's not something that personally bothers me, but I know most people prefer to have up to the latest generation when playing these games. Honestly, I really enjoyed this game, and I'm not sure how to convey that outside of how consistent and balanced it is. You won't find a super deep and engaging story or a unique battle gimmick, just a nice Pokemon adventure put together with a lot of love and care. Dark Horizon, taking place in between Pokemon Colosseum and Gale of Darkness. Games I haven't played, yet still really liked what I was presented with. Many of the systems and norms you expect in most Pokemon games aren't exactly present here. No gyms, no Pokemon League, not even tall grass. You'll mostly be traveling between different islands rather than a large region, tracking down Team Cypher and attempting to stop their plans of developing Shadow Pokemon. But hold on a second, if there's no tall grass, how exactly will I be obtaining Pokemon? The answer lies within my previous statement. As you take on the antagonist group, you'll be able to quote-unquote steal their Shadow Pokemon, who you can work towards cleansing back to normal. The game is really pretty and has a lot more content than I expected. My only real issue is that opening the hearts of Shadow Pokemon felt like a really tedious process, though you are able to upgrade your sort of trainer skill level and reduce the time it takes to do so. Pokemon Decay, a game where the first 4 regions have merged together, creating an original landmass packed with new regional forms. It has a very interesting concept on paper, yet in game, I felt kind of mixed about the presentation. On one hand, the physical route designs are very meticulously constructed to match the style of the first 4 generations. A lot of maps also stand out visually thanks to the use of custom tile sets. On the other hand, entering areas that retained those nearly unmodified fire red and leaf green tile sets felt like a smack in the face when exiting those with more vibrant visuals. The story was also really standard, which I won't label as a flaw since it is what the developer intended for. At the very least, the Pokemon battles are quite fun, and you have a lot of optional anti-grind mechanics to take advantage of. It's a game I definitely recommend, but for me personally, it will be going into my high B tier. Pokemon Deserted, a short and sweet adventure through a mysterious island with a very simple goal of stopping poachers from capturing Mew. I don't think there's much wrong with how this game is designed. The graphics, as a matter of fact, are really clean, and despite a semi-random battle AI, the Pokemon battles were still enjoyable. It's just really short, and it didn't offer me enough playtime to get attached to any of the people, Pokemon, or even locations. I'll throw it in the middle B tier and recommend it if you want something to kill a few hours. Fire Ash, a game I've watched be praised countless times on various forum pages, Discord servers, subreddits, and even YouTube videos similar to the ones I make myself. But I just haven't felt the same magic I've been getting told about upon playing myself. The game follows the story of Ash Ketchum through all 8 regions. I don't particularly care for the anime series at this point in my life, though my fond memory of the originals were not at all recreated here. If I had to give this game a better description, I'd say it's more or less just the first 8 generations with Ash's team members easily available, which I can totally get behind the appeal of that. Personally though, I did not enjoy any of it myself, especially with the, in my opinion, very bland looking recreations of the regions present. Gadir Deluxe. I talked about this one a few months ago, and a TLDR of my long opinionated segment of the game was basically, yeah, it's alright. I don't mean to repeat myself, but I don't think this game does anything highly critical that I feel is necessary to mention here. The region is very big with a lot of diverse routes, the story isn't bad, though it doesn't present anything unique either, and the Pokemon variety is quite plentiful. I think it can safely sit in the low A tier and is easily a game the average player will enjoy more than myself. Hero Legacy, promising the story about the journey's end from the perspective of a veteran trainer, taking on a new league within the region of Aora, and while I don't think it broke that promise, I will note that I did not at all enjoy the actual story I was presented with. Every rival and gym leader that would, in a new region, normally be an original character, was instead just replaced by one from the main series, and at least in my opinion, had very flat dialogue, which is kind of a letdown because the adventure aspect completely contradicts that, with good route layouts constructed using pretty tile sets. That alongside generations 1 through 8 Pokemon and a lot of modern gameplay features, I definitely recommend this game to a player who has no care for story, but I personally will be placing it into the low B tier. Hollow Woods, a game I say every time I pick it up, has evolved so much since I first laid my eyes on it years ago. You've got consistent graphics, good region design, and lots of QOL. The only 2 things I felt sort of meh about was A, the regionals, they're not bad, just pretty basic excluding a few outliers, compared to the many fan games I've played as of recent, and B, the story, which again, it's not bad, the world building is actually pretty good, I just didn't find myself getting attached to any of its characters. Yet overall, I still really enjoyed my time with it, easily deserving a spot in the low S tier. Up next is Hydro Bliss, a game with 2 gigantic regions, each with 18 gyms. And hearing that will probably make you want to scream at me for saying that I didn't really care for it. Even with that statement though, I don't think the game is bad, rather that without both a story or a unique battle or gameplay mechanic, the experience kind of boiled down to just collecting gym badge after gym badge until I explored every map in the game. Which, if that sounds fun to you, then yeah, definitely go play this game, because the map designs are quite nice, and with 2 big regions, you can expect to have a lot of Pokemon to catch. Though for me personally, it will be going into the low B tier. Pokemon Jam Festival. This game is pretty straightforward, there's no gym challenge, yet you still have a boss fight based progression system that requires you to travel around the region. They can be done in any order, though since the region is a lot smaller than average, it easily steers clear of the issues most open world games fall into. A problem it does suffer from, due to the small region size, is the number of encounters per route, making it somewhat tedious to find a specific Pokemon. Other than that, it's a fun game to kill a few hours, and I have no problem sliding it right into the A tier. Pokemon Kieshou. This one's pretty unique with an open world format and an ancient Japan themed setting. You'll travel through diverse routes, huge cities, and various dungeons. It's another game that excels with the exploration loop, making it once again a must play if that's your favorite aspect of the series. Though I have to be honest that the rest of the game didn't really impress me. The story does have some weight to it, but not so much any concepts that appealed to me personally. And while there is a lot of QOL, a lot of Pokemon, and like every mainline gimmick, I just couldn't keep myself interested. I really think this is just another case of me personally not liking open world Pokemon, so I recommend it if you don't mind that, though it will be going into my B tier. Pokemon Prisme. Repeating how I introduced the game in a video a few months back, it's certainly one of the most ambitious Pokemon fan games I've ever laid my eyes on. Beginning development in 2012, 4 regions available, dozens of side quests, etc. And despite the Kanto starting area, I've begun to get quite sick of playing so many different multi-region games over the years. The presence of an actual new story and some physical map changes made it much more bearable, but the slight annoyance of having to re-explore Kanto pales in comparison to how little QOL this game provides for boss fights that overlevel you extremely quickly. Which sucks because this seems like one of the more polished multi-region single-player games. I want to like it, I really do, yet I also have no desire to kill wild Pokemon for an hour just to be on par with the next gym leader. On to Pokemon Reunion, which, spoiler alert, is another game I did not really enjoy. But for what reason? On the rest of YouTube, you'll find a dozen videos holding the game's visuals, and especially story, in very high regard. Well, while I agree that the graphics are handled nicely, I did think the story was mostly just another situation where the creator almost entirely prioritized throwing in as many notable characters as possible. But story aside, my main issue with this extremely long game, that I've voiced every time I've talked about it, is how you begin with level 80 Pokemon, since you're playing as post-HGSS Red. And alongside the fact that the ability to work your way through the levels is almost non-existent here, these Pokemon you're handed aren't even EV trained to represent Red's efforts over the years. I can see how many players enjoyed this game's story, graphical quality, and maybe even gameplay alone, but neither of those aspects were able to speak to me in a way that made up for the lack of progression, something that to me is the most important part of an RPG like Pokemon. Last but not least, actually probably the farthest from the least it could possibly be, is Pokemon Relict. I'm really surprised I enjoyed this game as much as I did. Not because it looks bad, it actually looks absolutely incredible, rather that it's a roguelike. And I don't really like roguelikes, especially using the Pokemon formula, as I feel they most of the time abandon the exploration and narrative aspects I really enjoy about the series. Though this one is made by the creator of Consonancia, another roguelike I really enjoyed. But my biggest personal issue with that game, which was the lack of a leveling mechanic, isn't present here. After being greeted by the human form of Arceus, you'll receive a starter before progressing through Mystery Dungeon-inspired layouts filled with wild Pokemon and even bosses from the main series awaiting you every few floors. It definitely has less depth to it than games like Pokerogue or Emerald Rogue, yet the art style, visual quality, story, and simple gameplay loop speak to me so much more than what those games have to offer. It'll be going into the S+ tier right next to two of my favorites. As I close things out, please keep in mind that this is an opinionated tier list. If you disagree with any of my placements or thoughts about a game, that's totally fine. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video, and be sure to subscribe for more Pokemon fan games and ROM hacks. Thank you to my channel members for their continuous support, and have a nice rest of your day.